And there came a time known as the third millennium, a time when the people of the earth were ravaged by disease, pestilence, and poisons. A time when the horsemen of the apocalypse ran the multinational corporations. A time when America's citizens were waking up to a future of no money and no jobs. A time when a special man came forward, a man that your American taskmasters did not want you to see or hear, a man whom they took prisoner and hid away, a man whose name is Yahweh ben Yahweh. For telling people the truth, Yahweh ben Yahweh was taken prisoner by the minions of darkness. For giving people hope, Yahweh ben Yahweh was led away to Golgotha. This is the continuing story of the past and of the future, about good and about evil, about your life and what it will become. A story that tells why the so-called black man of America had to suffer for over 400 years. A story of what will happen to the so-called black man if he returns to the laws, statutes, judgments, and commandments of God, Yahweh. Olam shall Yahweh. The universe of Yahweh. Brought to you by the nation of Yahweh. Working for you and your future.
Good or evil, life or death. This is your choice in this, the year 6004, the year of judgment. Shalom and welcome to the universe of Yahweh. My name is Josiah Israel, and I am your host. For over 7 years now, we have been discussing some of the things the Bible said would occur in the day of judgment. We warned you that the weather was going to change, and that the powerful forces of nature were going to bring terrible destruction upon America and the world, and that it was going to get worse and worse and worse, and it has. We alerted you that violence in the public schools was going to increase, and it has. We showed you in the scriptures that forewarned of wickedness in high places, and we are witnessing today gross misconduct and serious crimes being committed by some of our highest elected officials. What lies ahead for America and the world is nothing less than the proliferation of deadly diseases and plagues as foretold in the Bible. But there is hope. The Bible tells us that at the end, the Messiah would be revealed, and at that time, he would save the righteous from this impending destruction. That one, the Messiah, is Yahweh ben Yahweh. So we invite you to join us in the universe of Yahweh, featuring the commandments of Yahweh and the Messiah revealed. First, the commandments of Yahweh.
For 6,000 years, we have been suffering at the hands of rulers who transgress the laws of Yahweh and teach all people throughout the earth to transgress the laws of Yahweh. In order to have peace, love, and harmony upon the earth, we must return to keeping the commandments, judgments, laws, and statutes of Yahweh. All of us have been taught that the commandments, judgments, laws, and statutes in the Old Testament Bible do not count today. In this series, we will show you that the commandments, judgments, laws, and statutes in the Old Testament Bible do count, and that if we govern our lives according to these commandments, judgments, laws, and statutes of God Yahweh, then we will have peace and goodwill upon the earth forever. We invite you to study along with us. However, in order to do so, you must have the following tools: a King James Version of the Bible, several dictionaries, the New Strong's Exhaustive Concordance, a set of encyclopedias, Hebrew and Greek lexicons, a thesaurus, and a synonym finder.
Shalom. My name is Sarah Abigail Yisrael. We are discussing the commandments of Yahweh. Many people have been taught that the first commandments ever given to man were given to Moses. The truth of the matter is, the first two commandments ever given to man were given to Adam in the Garden of Eden, which were to dress it and to keep it. We are still discussing the word keep. In Hebrew, the word keep is shamar, and one of its meanings is to be on the lookout for, or to be expectant of, the future birth of a child. We have been revealing some of the things the Bible said would happen to this one child, the Messiah, Yahweh ben Yahweh, that would clearly identify him as the one promised to come, to deliver or restore us, the lost sheep of the house of Israel, the so-called black man of America, who are descendants of slaves to the Promised Land. Last week, we decoded another part of Matthew chapter 27, verse 64, which says, "Lest his disciples come by night." We went to the books of understanding, the dictionaries, and carefully researched these words. Through our research, we learned the following. The word lest means for fear that. The word disciples means one who accepts and helps to spread the teachings of another. And the phrase come by means to pay a visit, to gain possession of. From these facts, we presented compelling testimony to show the many reasons why the chief priests and Pharisees sought a court order restricting the Messiah, Yahweh ben Yahweh, from having direct or indirect contact with those of us who have accepted his teachings and who have the ability to help spread his message. Some of the reasons we stated were for fear that we would go to see him in order to comfort and help him at an appointed time, that we will provide him with moral and financial support, and that we will contribute toward his defense. We also told you that it was for fear that we would win the people over to our side, that we will become even greater in popularity, and that we might get the people's attention and increase in momentum. In addition, we even told you that the reason the chief priests and Pharisees got a court order restricting Yahweh ben Yahweh from having any association with the ones of us who have accepted his teachings and have the ability to spread his message was for fear that we will reestablish our usual position of wealth and power, and that we will come off the winner or victor despite fighting against all odds and opposing forces. We told you that the chief priests and Pharisees sought these restrictions lest the disciples of Yahweh ben Yahweh come by night. We promised you last week that we would reveal some shocking facts about this appointed time, characterized as night. So today, we shall do just that. So let us begin. In the American Heritage Dictionary of the English Language, copyright 2000, on page 1188, the word night is defined as a time of gloom. The question we should ask ourselves is what could possibly take place during a time of gloom that would put the chief priests and Pharisees in so much fear of Yahweh ben Yahweh associating with his disciples. The answer to this question is hidden in the word gloom. So come, let us go to the books of understanding, the dictionaries, and learn what this is all about. Documented in the Webster's 9th New Collegiate Dictionary, copyright 1989, on page 521, from the etymology of the word gloom, it states that gloom is akin to the Old English word giolu, and it means yellow. Gloom means yellow. Now I am compelled to stay on this trail. Still using the same source, Webster's 9th New Collegiate Dictionary, on page 1367, the word yellow is described as, listen very carefully, featuring scandalous items or ordinary news, sensationally distorted. On page 454, featuring is defined as to picture or portray in the mind. This is indeed shocking. Thus, from the etymology of the word gloom, we can conclude with absolute certainty that the reason the chief priests and Pharisees got a court order restricting Yahweh ben Yahweh from having any direct or indirect contact or communication with the members of the nation of Yahweh who agree with his teachings and who have the ability to help spread his message was so when the media begins picturing or portraying in the minds of the people scandalous items or ordinary news that is sensationally distorted about Yahweh ben Yahweh, we, his disciples who have accepted his message, will have absolutely no contact or communication with him. Now, let us reveal something else about this word gloom that will be astounding to you. Now I am going to take you on a word history journey, so follow me very carefully. Stated in the Cassell Concise Dictionary, copyright 1998, on page 627, the word gloom is derived from a Middle English word called glaumen, which means to lour. On page 872, lour comes from the Greek word lauren, which is described as to lie in wait. So gloom is talking about someone lying in wait. Referenced in a Dictionary of American Idioms, 3rd edition, copyright 1995, on page 243, lie in wait means to watch from hiding in order to attack someone. In accordance with Chambers' Concise Dictionary and Thesaurus, copyright 2001, on page 1370, watch means to keep a person under surveillance. On page 512, from means movement out of. And on page 78, attack is defined as to criticize strongly in speech or writing. Therefore, we see here that the chief priests and Pharisees are keeping a person under surveillance whom they have moved out of contact with Yahweh ben Yahweh and his disciples. But this person has been watching from a hidden position in order to prepare himself or herself to feed the news media scandalous and ordinary news items, sensationally distorted and strongly criticizing Yahweh ben Yahweh in both speech and in writing. Not only will these news items be lopsided and out of context, but they will also be sensationally fabricated and sensationally exaggerated. From the word night, we can conclude that the reason the chief priests and Pharisees got this court order restricting Yahweh ben Yahweh from having any association with us was for fear that we will be able to go to see about him, or will be able to comfort or help him when this person they have under their protective custody begins to feed the media distorted, scandalous news about Yahweh ben Yahweh. They got this court order restricting Yahweh ben Yahweh from having any contact with us because of fear that we will be able to provide him moral support. We will be able to give him the assistance he'll need. They feared that we will be able to get with him and mobilize an aggressive defense strategy to destroy their scandalous, distorted news items. In addition, the word night confirms that the reason the chief priests and Pharisees got this court order prohibiting Yahweh ben Yahweh from seeing or communicating with us was for fear that when the news media begins to publish these scandalous news stories strongly criticizing Yahweh ben Yahweh, we will be able to band together with Yahweh ben Yahweh, present compelling testimony against these lies, and win the people over to our side. They feared that we will be able to come together with him and persuade the people to see us as being totally opposite from the way in which we have been portrayed by the media. These restrictions were put upon Yahweh ben Yahweh because the chief priests and Pharisees feared that when this person who is being hidden by them casts out his or her scandalous, distorted venom about Yahweh ben Yahweh, we will rally around him and waged an all-out media blitz or campaign to make the people knowledgeable or aware of the truth. They got a court order to put these restrictions on Yahweh ben Yahweh because they feared that we will join forces with him, connect with some powerful people, and increase in momentum. And they greatly feared that we will get the attention of the American people and become even greater in popularity. The compelling facts clearly show that the reason the chief priests and Pharisees got a court order restricting Yahweh ben Yahweh from having any direct or indirect communication or contact with any of his disciples while in his private home, serving his parole for the remainder of his 18-year prison sentence, was for fear that during the time when these scandalous, sensationally distorted news items are being fed to the news media, Yahweh ben Yahweh and members of the nation of Yahweh who have accepted his teachings and have the ability to help spread his message will assemble a powerful coalition that will gain support and win the sympathy of the people, and subsequently come off the winner or victor despite fighting against all odds and opposing forces, thus fulfilling this prophecy as written. Now, who is this person that the chief priests and Pharisees are keeping under surveillance, whom they moved out of contact with Yahweh ben Yahweh and his disciples for the purpose of speaking out publicly against Yahweh ben Yahweh? Be sure to join us next week as we continue to decode Matthew chapter 27, verse 64, and resume our course of singling out the family of Adam from the perspective of the word watch and its relationship to keep. I bear witness to you today that the Messiah, Yahweh ben Yahweh, is here.
I bear witness to you today that the Mahdi is here.
I bear witness to you today that Shiloh is here. I bear witness to you today that the great light is here.
I bear witness to you today that the Grand Master of the Celestial Lodge, Architect of the universe, is here.
I bear witness to you today that the Enlightened One is here.
I bear witness to you today that the one all religions has been speaking of for almost 6,000 years is here.
Thank you for listening, and join us next week as we continue our discussion of the commandments of Yahweh.
Loading. One moment, please. The new Yahweh Ben Yahweh website now offers the latest in streaming technology to aid you in your study of the laws and teachings of Yahweh Ben Yahweh. Visit YahwehBenYahweh.com and learn about the Tetragrammaton, the meaning of the crucifixion, and how to keep the Sabbath. YahwehBenYahweh.com is your home for truth and insight. Read about Operation Word War and how you can work to balance justice. Shalom.
Who is worthy? Who is worthy to open the book? Who is worthy to open the book and loose the seals thereof?
And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. At the end of time of evil rule, the Anointed One, the Messiah, shall appear. In 1979, Yahweh Ben Yahweh came to Miami and became the spiritual leader and founder of the Nation of Yahweh. Although he took a vow of poverty, in 7 years he guided the nation to amass a $250 million empire. Under his direction, the Nation of Yahweh has grown to encompass disciples, followers, and supporters in over 1,300 cities within the U.S. and 16 foreign countries. Yahweh Ben Yahweh is bringing about changes in the lives of individuals and is giving the world the keys to success in life, politically, economically, educationally, socially, and spiritually.
The word ask means to solicit Yahweh, to seek Yahweh by entreaty, earnest, and respectful request. To entreat Yahweh to do something. Ask means to supplicate, which means to pray humbly to Yahweh, to ask Yahweh by humble, unpretentious, free from pride, modest entreaty. Ask means to beseech, which means to make an earnest appeal to Yahweh. Ask means to pray to Yahweh, to offer a devout, worshipful, and faithful petition to Yahweh, to offer a heaven-minded, holy, and godly entreaty to Yahweh, to offer a pure in heart, righteous, and solemn petition to Yahweh, to offer praise, glorification, honor to Yahweh, to offer homage, devotion, reverence to Yahweh, to offer thanks, appreciation, sense of obligation, recognition to Yahweh. He must be our object of worship. We must enter into spiritual communion with Yahweh. We are blessed to have this divine knowledge revealed about the words, prayer, and asking.
Remember that this is the morning of the third day, and I shall rise again. I am the resurrection. All of prophecy tells you that I shall rise again. It's all about that. Luke chapter 2, verse 34. No doubt about it. Again, I love you forever, bless you forever. I remind you once again, my associates are children of the light. That just brings laughter to my heart, to my soul, to realize that at last I have those of you that love peace. And I only want to be in the presence of those of you that love peace. I love you forever. Shalom Aleichem.
Ask means to pray to Yahweh, to offer a devout and faithful petition. We must ask Yahweh with an earnest, respectful, and unpretentious entreaty. He must be our object of worship. If we, as the children of Yahweh, will only trust Him for our needs, then Yahweh will grant us our request. However, we must always remember that Yahweh will only give the things that are good in light of eternity and in accord with His plan and His timetable. Thank you for joining us in the universe of Yahweh. And now, we'd like to invite all of you to pray with us as we turn to the east with outstretched hands and say a prayer to our Heavenly Father, Yahweh, the Lord's Prayer in Hebrew. Come, let us pray. Tefillah, Ave Nu Shabbat Shemayim, Yikar Deshemeaka, Tavo Malkuteaka, Yase Razonka, Kiva Shemayim Kang Ba'aretz, Et Lekem Kukenu, Tain La Nu Hayom, Uslak La Nu, Ar Katienu, Kimosha Sol Kim, Gamanaknu, La Koteum La Nu, Veal Tefienu, Lade Nisayom, Kim Kal Senu, Min Hara, Kilaka, Hamamlaha, Veha Givara, Veha Tiferet, Leolame, Olamin Sila. We thank Thee, O Yahweh, O living and eternal King, who has so mercifully restored our souls within us. Selah. Praise Yahweh, and always remember that the Father Yahweh and His Son Yahweh ben Yahweh love you, and your host loves you too. Shalom Aleichem.
To order the companion book to the series, The Messiah Revealed, call 1-800-967-PEACE. That's 1-800-967-7337. And when you call, ask about the special discount on the Blessed and Only Potentate. Videos of this program are available. When ordering, please refer to the program number on the screen.
You can now access the divine mind of Yahweh ben Yahweh on the internet at the address on the screen.